August is upon us, and hurricane season is getting ready to ramp up. Jeff and I will address some of these issues, and Ian Blaylock, our new meteorologist at the Southeast River Forecast Center, will help us to talk about our meteorology in the August 13th edition of the Water Resources Outlook.
Okay, let us take a look at the past precipitation across the Southeast, and we see for the past 30 days the departure from normal, and we see that most of the Southeast has been pretty dry. There is one exception, and that is West Central Florida, where we've had excessive rainfall the past couple of weeks, causing serious river flooding in areas around Tampa. Otherwise, precipitation has been an inch or two below normal in many areas. How this ranks with the past, here's the state precipitation ranks looking at the data from 1895 to 2015, and we see that in July most of the country had been near to above normal except the southeast Atlantic coast states, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, all ranking in the below average category. South Carolina with the 17th driest July. And looking at how the May to July period ranked, basically the summer this year, we see again most of the country has been wet. The southeast has been dry, with South Carolina ranking the 9th driest May to July period. So how has this affected stream flows? Well, we can see that many stream flows are now at much below normal levels, especially in South Carolina. The Santee and Pee Dee rivers, much of the watershed running at base flow or less, all impacted by this period of dry weather across the Carolinas and even into Georgia and Alabama. As so with this dry period, yes, drought has begun to peek its head into the region this summer, and the latest drought monitor showing severe drought still holding in South Carolina, and now more moderate drought across Alabama and Georgia popping up since early July. We can see that for the southeast since mid-June we have gone from 5% in moderate drought to nearly a quarter of the southeast now in moderate drought, and for specifically South Carolina we've gone from 0% in moderate drought back there in mid-June to 63% in moderate drought now. So drought really expanding with the warm temperatures and below normal rainfall this summer. The only extreme drought in the southeast is that small area down in South Florida where at least moderate drought levels have been observed for several months now. Many of the wells are at very low levels down there, with the South Florida Water Management District implementing water restrictions in several areas of Miami-Dade and Broward counties. As we always show, we are in week 33 of the river flood climatology, and as you can see, we are in the summer lower period for river floods for most of the southeast. But for Central Florida makes up a good proportion of the southeast river floods, and we see here we are in the middle of the ramp-up period for the Florida Peninsula river flood season. We have several more weeks climatologically speaking, so all the significant flooding in Central Florida is not out of character for this time of year. We talked about flooding and drought. Which way are we heading as we go into fall? Todd will talk a bit about this just after Ian talks on the short-term weather.
Here's the meteorology portion of your Water Resources Outlook. The early part of this period is going to be typified by a stalled out boundary with dry air present over much of the deep south and a moist air mass bringing rain to Florida. So basically we're looking at an upper level trough that's just going to be sitting over much of the eastern U.S. for much of next week. Mostly our rain chances are going to be focused on Florida as well as parts of the southern Atlantic and northern Gulf coast and a little bit of the Piedmont area. So short-term outlook, here's that stalled out boundary I was mentioning earlier. Our best rain chances are over central and south Florida, with extending a little bit further north. And this pattern doesn't really change a whole lot through the weekend. As you can see, here's Friday afternoon, here is Saturday afternoon, here's Sunday afternoon. Again, not really extending too far north. Now, with our midterm outlook, again, this pattern is just not really going to be kicking out. Again, here we are looking through Sunday through Tuesday. This is the WPC's 48-hour precip forecast. Again, focused largely on the northern Gulf Coast, Piedmont, southern Atlantic coast, and again, as you can see, definitely focused on Florida. Rain chances shift a little bit east through the middle of the week. This is valid through Tuesday through Thursday. And then here's, the 7-day summary through today through next Thursday. And again, here it's just really outlined pretty clearly that our big focus for this period is going to be Florida. This is your long-term outlook. This graphic is from the Climate Prediction Center. It's valid from Thursday the 20th through Wednesday the 26th. And we're looking at above average rain chances for pretty much most of the eastern U.S. Thursday through Saturday, we're going to basically be looking at upper level highs moving across the region, which should keep things dry for the first part of this long term. But as that begins to move offshore, it'll bring a big plume of moisture into the eastern U.S., which will increase rain chances for the remainder of the extended period.
So now that Jeff has addressed climate and Ian has addressed the short and mid-term, we will talk a little bit more about the long term. Little has changed since our last WRO. We expect that the next couple of months we will sound like a broken record as we approach this winter. The El Niño conditions have dampened the hurricane activity in the Atlantic, and this looks to continue as we are in the ramp-up of the peak of hurricane season in the middle of September. Tropical weather that will impact the southeast is still possible, and everyone still needs to be prepared in case something develops. We are still looking for near normal rainfall in the southeast based on the seasonal outlook of August through October. And normal means that unless there's tropical weather, things tend to be kind of dry. So expect continue warm and mostly dry for the seasonal period. Seems, though, that we have gotten a few weak fronts that have stalled over central Florida and have enhanced their wet season in some areas, especially the Tampa area of the Florida West Coast. And the expectations for a very wet winter? Again, we will continue to monitor and let everyone know if things begin to change. And so the bottom line, normal summertime rainfall. We are drying out in some places, especially South Carolina. We're wetter in others, especially Florida. That looks to continue in the short term. In the long term, we are expecting an inactive tropical season leading into El Niño late fall and winter, which we still expect to be wetter than normal. We expect to record our next water resources outlook the week of September 14th. Thank you again for listening. Again, if you have any questions, you can continue to email me, Jeff Dober, and now Ian Blaylock in case you have any questions about the climate, weather, or long-term outlook. Thank you for listening.